Monadnock region, and welcome to another very special episode of Go Mo Tonight. And I am here today in the Space Lounge. I'm Chris DiLoretto with my co-host,
Zoe Roten-Heinsman.
and we are joined today. We have the pleasure of welcoming here into the Space Lounge in Peterborough, Marianne Williamson, presidential candidate in the Democratic primary. Welcome, Marianne.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Yes, and it was nice to meet you last night. Thank you for coming to Peterborough. We like to thank any candidate that comes through town. You know, it's one of the special things about the New Hampshire primary. You know, this is a town of like 6,000 people. There's no, if it weren't for the primary, there would be no reason for any candidates to come by here for any kind of national office, really. So, you know, as of tomorrow, you will have completed 2 New Hampshire primary cycles. So
No, because I dropped out last time before the New Hampshire primary. So this is my first time to actually be in it.
Okay. Were you on the ballot though? Did you drop out before the ballot was printed?
Yeah. I'm sure. No, I was on the ballot, but then
I was going to say, I think I voted for you anyway.
Yeah, once you suspend that, I don't know if I was taken off or not. I actually don't know, but
Yeah.
you know, but I dropped out a month before, so.
Gotcha. So how do you feel about the New Hampshire primary? Any kind of general thoughts from the, partial experience last time, full experience this time?
Well, this is a different America than 4 years ago. And, last time there was one single focus for Democrats, and that was getting rid of Donald Trump, defeating Donald Trump. And what we can now see was a kind of naive belief, certainly hope, that if we just defeated Trump, this country could go back to normal. This time, people realize the problem goes deeper. Not that anybody's sure what to do about it, but they realize the problem has gone deeper. We've been through COVID. It's somehow a deeper listening, a more sober listening this time, a more confused. People might even look at it and say people are apathetic. I don't think people are apathetic. I think people are paralyzed. I think people can't even believe what's happened to this country and sort of are just trying to figure out what to do. Now, what I feel in the last few days is that granite staters, it's amazing how many people have not yet made up their mind. Even today, it's amazing to me. But I think even that is part of the fact that people take so seriously what this vote will mean. So on one hand, it's a privilege to be part of this amazing vortex, which is the primary. I mean, this is a big, big deal. People have been saying forever, oh, the most important election of our lifetime. This is, I think, one of the most consequential elections of American history. So you're in this pressure cooker just to be here. I'm sure anybody can feel it. You feel it. And, it's, you're living history. That's for sure. We're living history.
And how has it been in terms of the Democratic field and the party atmosphere and things like that this time versus last time? Did that like kind of singular focus make things different?
Well, more than ever now, the Democratic Party has turned itself into the decider, which is not how it's supposed to be. The people are supposed to be the decider. Thomas Jefferson said the only safe repository for power is in the hands of the people. And the traditional role of the political party is to stay in the background. Then you let the people decide. So what media platforms should be doing, what the party should be doing, is facilitating the democratic process. But as we know, they've been suppressing the democratic process in this primary season, among other things, giving all the oxygen to the Republicans. So granite staters are either going to codependently go along with that tomorrow. Okay, we'll vote for Joe, even though he just slapped us in the face. I mean, I don't want to insult people who are going to do that, because I think many people are doing that because they honestly think he's the one to beat Trump. I don't. And I think that at the very least, we should have been allowed to have a far more robust conversation about it.
Mm-hmm. Considering what you just said and some of the treatment that you've mentioned both last night and on social media, being a woman in this race and how you've been shut out of media outlets that were paying attention to you 4 years ago, why are you still considering yourself a Democrat? Would you ever consider running as an independent?
Well, first of all, to be honest, I think even though I've been through what I've been through last time, even though I saw what they did to Bernie last time and the time before, I did not expect this. I mean, I had had a CNN town hall last time. I expected I would this time. I was on CNN and MSNBC fairly regularly last time. I thought I would be this time. So I didn't expect the viciousness of the shutout. That's number one. And also, I have a nostalgic connection to the Democratic Party I grew up with, that my parents were part of, unequivocal advocacy for the working people of the United States. I would not do anything that I felt further increased the probabilities of Donald Trump getting back into the White House. In fact, there's a weird, bizarre way in which he almost feels more powerful now than ever. That man's a threat. That man is a threat.
Yeah, and so I hear that, and we have a little bit of a guilty pleasure over here of putting on Morning Joe in the morning, and I take it they haven't reached out because we've been like, well, where is Marianne?
Well, it's not just that they don't reach out. We reach out, of course. We have
I'm
a press.
sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
And we just get no response whatsoever. Now, Amy Goodman is having me on tomorrow,
That's
but
good.
I assume maybe she heard from people because this whole time, why would I not have been on Amy Goodman, right? So I'm
Right.
grateful that I'm going to be on tomorrow morning. But Joe Rogan, Lex Fridman, Elon Musk gave Twitter Spaces to Bobby, to Dean Phillips the other day. So I don't know. It's been harder to reach people. I'm grateful for being on your show today.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for all the outlets that I have. But that is really the issue with my candidacy, the ability to reach enough people to even know that I exist. When people know that a campaign like this exists, offering an agenda for fundamental structural reform economically, not just tweaking things a little here and there, not just making it easier for you if you're having to live at the effect of an unjust system, but an agenda which actually solves the injustice and unrigs this economy and brings back the middle class. Once people hear that agenda on both left and right, I have no doubt that the majority of Americans would be at the very least intrigued by that agenda. That's based on every poll ever expressed among Democrats and Republicans. And I think that that's why certain elite forces have not wanted me to be out there. It sort of upsets the corporate apple cart, which is very disturbing. It shouldn't be their decision.
Yeah, no kidding. And that's especially disappointing, I feel like, to hear that even, so-called independent voices like Joe Rogan and everything aren't kind of giving you the time that you deserve, because I've seen it. I mean, I think it was true in 2020 when you ran and had that CNN town hall was a big deal. I mean, a lot of people watched that. A lot of people thought you did very well.
Absolutely. A CNN town hall and then they would let someone like Vivek Ramaswamy have it, or Chris
Right.
Christie, people who were polling much less than I. And then, of course, that decreases your polling numbers because people don't know that you exist. And then they say, see, well, why should we have her on? She's polling so low. So it's a rigged game. It's a game
Yeah.
that is locked up in too many ways. But that's what makes the New Hampshire primary so important. This is one of those flashpoints where if people wish to, they can cut the cord from all that. They can be independent thinkers. And listen, that's one of the reasons that the DNC wanted to pass by New Hampshire to begin with, because
Right.
New Hampshire is known for being independent thinkers. So I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, maybe you have a feeling because you are Granite Staters. For those of us who aren't, it just seems like it could be anything. I mean, I know the probability is it's just going to be a big win for Joe Biden, but maybe not.
Yeah. Maybe not.
Yeah, I don't really have a sense of how the Democratic primary is going to go, honestly.
What do
From
you
our
think about
perspective, it's
Iowa?
been an unusual primary season. It's really hard to tell what people are feeling, and how many people are showing up to write in Biden, which, I mean, I do find codependent and a little bit, I mean, he was trying to punish us a little bit,
I
and
know. I was on a radio show this morning, and the guy said Biden's attitude to New Hampshire is he's just not that into you. You're like,
right.
why are you so
Exactly.
calling? Why are you so calling? This is embarrassing. But I was going to ask you, so how do you feel about the Republican side? What do you think is going to happen tomorrow?
But my suspicion is, I think that Trump is going to win, probably with similar margins to Iowa. I know that they're really trying to make it a race between him and Nikki Haley, and actually Nikki Haley was here this weekend in Peterborough as well, and she drew a fair number of people, and I don't think that obviously she's got that Coke money and all kinds of other kind of establishment anti-Trump forces behind her, and I don't know that the performance though is going to pan out the way that they're hoping. That's just my sense. I don't have any numbers to back that up, but.
Trump just has a hold on certain segment of the American population. There's no doubt about it. But I feel as a Democrat that our greatest danger is not people voting for Trump. People who are going to vote for Trump are going to vote for Trump. Our biggest danger is people staying home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's why we have to inspire people to believe that we could start over. We could have a new beginning. We could have an economic U-turn. You could have universal health care and tuition-free college and subsidized childcare. And there are elites among the Democrats who would rather lose the election than offer people that much.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's true.
Yeah. I think that these things that you're saying are really attractive to people. The notion of expanding our political imagination, the idea that we could start over, like your guarantees for a good life. But the other thing that I think is really attractive about your candidacy is your spiritual aspect, which we didn't really hear that talked about a lot last night, but I follow you on social media and I have since the last time you ran, and that's something that I find really appealing about you. And in fact, I was one of those voters who didn't know if I was going to vote in the primary at all, to be honest, this year, until I heard you on Jackman Radio, when you were talking about how you were wanting to push through and like change the forces, in the ether. And that whole idea, that statement, is really appealing to me. I think that is something that we need, and I really applaud you for viewing it that way and for not being afraid to say it that way and for doing it. I know that as my spiritual path has taken me, I've believed less in the power of national politics to really change some of these things. And while I do see that there are a lot of material issues that people face that could perhaps be addressed by some of these policies, I think that there's a lot going on with America that is a spiritual problem. And I just wonder how you see that, how you see national politics or a national political office being able to address some of those spiritual issues that might be facing people.
All that a country is a group of people. So the same principles that prevail within the journey of an individual prevail within the journey of a nation. So as individuals, when we try to be loving, we try to live in integrity with others, we try to be a space of possibility for other people, we try to clean up the past, we try to atone for our mistakes and forgive others for theirs, we try to live in alignment with the angels of our better nature. When we do those things as individuals, life works better. And when we deviate from those things, we attract all manner of chaos, negative relationships, and etc. The same is true for a country. So our country is now governed not by a democratic principle, which is in fact very spiritual. It's the emergence of a possibility that anyone should be able to thrive, or even humanitarian values. So much as we have adopted over the last 50 years an economic system, which is predicated on the idea that short-term profits for the stockholders of a huge corporation should take precedence over safety, over health, over welfare of the American people. It's become the governing principle as opposed to democracy and humanitarian values. Now, a sociopath is someone who has no conscience, no ethics. A sociopath would not say, well, I can't do that because a child will go hungry. A sociopath doesn't stop to think about the effect of their behavior on your life. We have embraced an economic system enabled by our government, which is similarly soulless. There's no ethics there. There's no moral core there. It's a spiritual rot. Now, an economic system should serve the people, but right now the people serve this economic system, and it is the soulless behemoth of power with its tentacles into every corner of American society. And we don't have universal health care. Why? Because of the institutionalized greed of the insurance companies. We don't need that middleman. That's the only reason we don't have it. We have people rationing their insulin and unable to afford the prescriptions their doctors give them. Why? Because of the institutionalized greed of the pharmaceutical companies. We have carcinogens in our food. We could feed our children. Why? Because of the institutionalized greed of big food. And on and on and on through big chemical companies, big agricultural companies, gun manufacturers, big oil and defense contractors. Now, what are we going to do about that? You know, it's not spiritual to say, oh, I recognize the problem, but I'm just going to sit here. It is spiritual to say, use my hands, use my feet. Let me be used by the forces of love as a healing agent. And that's what we need our citizenship to mean. Our citizenship should feel to us like the immune system, the immune cells in a very sick and wounded body. And all of us, you know, that's what immune cells do, you know, go to that wound, go to that wound, that wound. And I think that's how all of us need to think of ourselves right now. And I think you obviously do. You know, one person has a podcast, one person's running for office, one person writes a book, some person, you know, everybody has a different specific assignment, but it's all in the direction of trying to save this body politic, which is very, very ill right now. That's a real problem, those things that I described to you, and they have caused a profound decline. That economic system has destroyed our middle class and destroyed people's lives. So we have to change that. There's no spiritual or religious system that gives anyone a pass on addressing the suffering of other sentient beings. And people are suffering from all this.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And I find that notion of citizenship very inspiring, personally, you know, and it reminds me of, like, you know, you talk a fair amount of hope versus despair, you know, and sensing despair and finding despair out there, you know, amongst the people and trying to, you know, bring hope where there is that despair. And, you know, I find that idea of citizenship a very hopeful one. And so one of the things that we talk about a lot and we think about a lot, and we try our best to do, you know, what we can, but you know, when this is all over, you know, when not even later this week, but you know, after November and all that, you know, and the cameras turn off and we have a completed election, as we assume. What can folks do in your mind, like on a local level, to cultivate that idea of citizenship and to instill that kind of hope that this is not a waste of time, that this is, you know, it's on the one hand, like we have a responsibility, but on the other hand, like there can be great joy in it, I think, you know?
Well, I think hope is born of participation in hopeful solutions. You don't feel so hopeless when you're actually participating in the solution because you're generating the energy that
Sure.
is the solution. If you're going to have self-governance, and that's what this country is, it's an experiment in self-governance, then we cannot allow to farm out our best thinking the way we've been trained to do. You know, if we only show up every 2 years or every 4 years, but corporate lobbyists are showing up every hour of every workday, then what do we expect? And so there's a switch that turns in our minds, and we begin to realize that we have to begin to see any kind of political activism as simply an aspect of a well-lived, meaningful life.
I like
And
that.
that's what I think is beginning to dawn on people. You know, I'm sure you heard me say, you know, it's not about me going to Washington and fight for you. The things I have to work with in Washington, you have to work with in Concord and probably in the town council in Peterborough.
Yep.
I mean, the struggle is everywhere, but it has to begin also with the principles of nonviolence and our asking ourselves not only what it is we need to do, but who we need to be while we're doing it. Because everything we do is infused with the consciousness with which we do it. So when Martin Luther King said, civil rights movement is the political externalization, he said the desegregation of the American South is the political externalization of the goal of the civil rights movement. He said, but the ultimate goal is the establishment of the beloved community.
Hmm.
that it's ultimately going to take a change in our hearts, not just a change in our policy. But, it can't be either one without the other.
Right. I think it's
You
been
know,
tried on both ways, what
Mhm.
one without the other,
But I think people are beginning to realize that. I think there's a more holistic, integrative understanding of how life operates that's taking hold within mainstream consciousness. You've got to address the issues of the external and the internal. You've got to address the symptoms, but also the root causes. You've got to read the economic data, but you've also got to read the human despair. You've
Yeah.
got to really forge a partnership between brain and heart, which they now find that partnership is now deemed to be the intelligence center of the human body. It used to be that they just thought the brain was.
Right.
So now what's happening is I think that we can embrace the realization that a partnership between brain and heart is also the intelligence center of a civilization. It's not intelligent to not feed your children. It's not intelligent to destroy your planet. It's not intelligent to put carcinogens in your food. It's not intelligent to allow guns to just so flood our streets that children are being shot at school. So none of this stuff we're doing is intelligent.
Right.
It's insane. That's what Gandhi said. Gandhi said the problem with the world is humanity is not in its right mind. So this campaign is for those who want to rail against that and start again and turn around.
Love it. Can you tell us about your idea for a Department of Peace?
Well, a Department of Peace, if we have a military academy, great, we should also have a peace academy. They play war games. We should also play peace games. We have an army of military personnel. We should also have an army of peace builders, because peace building is an actual thing. There are 4 factors, and when these factors are present within any system, there's a higher level of peace and a lower incidence of violence. Greater economic opportunities for women, greater educational opportunities for children, a reduction of violence against women, and amelioration of unnecessary human despair. We must proactively create peace. War or conflict is the absence of peace, not the other way around. Just like we need to proactively cultivate health. Not enough to treat disease. We have to proactively cultivate health, and we need to look at peace and conflict the same way. And then we need to apply that not only to international situations, but those factors and their presence and the importance of those factors is as true in a corner of the American city as is in any other part of the world.
Well, speaking of war and conflicts, can you tell us a little bit about your stance and your ideas about the current conflicts in Gaza and the Ukraine and how you would tackle what's going on there?
Well, we need an immediate ceasefire. This indiscriminate bombing in southern Gaza that's going on right now should not be supported by the United States in any way. And we need a complete release of the hostages. And we need architecture for a 2-state solution. And we need it now. There's no military solution for this situation. There never was a military solution. And I think that there's a real yearning among the peoples of the world, a yearning among many people in that region to get on with it. There must be a plan for a 2-state solution, and that's what the United States should support. In terms of Ukraine, I have my own ambivalence. The United States does not have clean hands here in terms of our shenanigans with NATO, in terms of the Aegis missiles in Poland and elsewhere. But none of that justifies Vladimir Putin's atrocious invasion of a sovereign nation. And I understand the point that if you let him think he can get away with that, that could be really bad for the entire world. I understand all that. At the same time, the counteroffensive that we were hoping would work, that, with which we were hoping that the Ukrainians would be able to rout out the Russians, did not do that. And today it's pretty much a stalemate. It's a war of attrition. So, everybody's always said, well, ultimately it's going to have to be a negotiated settlement. And I've always felt, well, let it be a negotiation where there is still a Ukraine to negotiate.
Sure. Yeah.
We're at a point where, because of this stalemate, it could be argued that the longer we take, the less good it would be for Ukraine. So I see both sides of that, and I'm not president today. And the day I become president, if I am to become president, I'm given a briefing of a deeper level of military analysis even than you or I could know just reading on the internet. So I don't want to give Vladimir Putin any reason to believe that the world will fold that easily when he seeks to do something like that. And I don't want to have other countries in the world that might be thinking similarly imperialistic thoughts. But at the same time, there is a forever war machine in this country that exerts tremendous power and with which I would not wish to be snookered, by which I would choose not to be manipulated. So because I'm not president, I'm a candidate, I can honestly say I'm living with the inquiry right now.
Sure.
I really appreciate that. I think that's something that is missing, is that ability to say this is complicated. I don't have all the information. I'm not going to rush to,
And I would as
making a
president,
decision about what to do.
Yeah, I would say as president, as soon as I'm clear and I know for sure what I believe the best action is, I'll let you know.
Sounds good. And, with regard to that, you mentioned you become president, you get a briefing that the rest of us don't get to see. And, I think that there's a good argument to be made that there will always be some things that when it comes to national security, have to kind of be behind closed doors or, in certain briefings, et cetera. But and especially, I also don't think that this is the kind of thing you can necessarily change like on day one or anything like that, right? But do you think that if someone like yourself was to become president, right, perhaps over time, there could be more things shared with the American people than are shared today? Maybe less things get classified, less secrecy in the Pentagon and intelligence communities. How do you feel about secrecy in general in government?
Well, listen, I'm the generation that saw the Pentagon Papers. Look at what's happening with Julian Assange, Edward Snowden, Daniel Hale. So this is the deal. The whole classified system has been perverted. The classified system was meant originally to mean that if in fact a piece of material would be a danger, if its release would be a danger to national security, then our officials have the right to classify it. What started several years ago was they just started classifying anything that was inconvenient to them, that they just didn't want you to know. And that's really what's happening with the collateral damage factors with Assange, Julian Assange. So they just start, redacting anything that we really don't want them to know we did that. We don't want them to know we did that. So then if a journalist comes and says, well, why is that classified? Then they say, can't tell you, it's classified. So everybody gets this. Everybody gets this. This is why the Pentagon Papers was such a big deal. This is why Daniel Ellsberg was so supportive of Julian Assange. The government is covering up atrocities. So, transparency and lack of secrecy is important, except where there is a real risk to national security. But we all know that there's a blob, that there's a forever war machine, that Washington is riddled with warmongers. I think that a lot of us, there's been a real maturing of the American public. But what's dangerous is how many times now a healthy skepticism just turns into cynicism. And cynicism is just an excuse for not helping. And that's why I want to be president, because I think that people need to see that somebody's there who gets all that.
Yeah, I think so. Do you think that should we ever come more to terms with kind of some of those uglier sides, atrocities even, that are part of this empire that we have, is there a way to make those things right? Or is it more a commitment to avoid doing those things in the future?
No, it's one of the reasons I want to be president. I want to help this country look in the mirror. It's like when you go to confession in Catholicism, or Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement in Judaism, or admitting the exact nature of your wrongs in AA. If you don't admit what has happened, you're more likely to repeat what happened. in Catholicism, it's called the purification of memory. You have to look at it. You have to own it. And that's what's dangerous about not teaching our children history. And also, I felt even with the Iraq War and the last 20 years of Afghanistan, this is how officialdom looks at it. Oops, probably shouldn't have done that. Move on.
Right.
Really?
That's it.
Really?
Yeah.
You know how many people died? Do you
Yeah.
know how many people suffered? But to that crowd, hey, they made trillions of dollars.
Right.
And the way they're poking the bear now, they just, they're just licking at the chops now. Going to China. Ooh, there's China, there's Chinese South Sea. Ooh, Ukraine. No, we need a president who sees right through that.
Yeah, and it's tough. It's one of the things that kind of has been maybe the most frustrating for me about, say, the Democratic electorate. Not even so much the establishment, because I look back 20 years, say 2004, right? And it was, even back then, we couldn't really get our presidential candidate, John Kerry, to really disavow Iraq in a full-throated way, But Democrats, like rank and file, we were out marching, and we were very anti-war. And this was a big part of being a Democrat, was opposing war. And I feel like that in the last, maybe it started in the Obama administration, but it has been lost. And I don't have a question associated with that, but I just find that frustrating.
What you're saying is not only true on the issue of war, it's on the issue of the economy, it's on the issue of healthcare, it's on the issue of college, it's on the issue of so much. The people have the right idea. The problem is not the people. The problem is a sclerotic political system. It seeks to keep the lid on the express will of the people, because the will of the people does not necessarily serve the bottom line corporate financial interests of that donor class. Washington is owned by them. It's a system of legalized bribery. So you might have a senator or a congressman who honestly does not care what you think.
Right.
Because when it comes to getting elected again, your vote overall does not matter as much as the money from their donors, which will mean that even if they lose your vote, they're going to gain 5 more from the narrative and the propaganda that is spewed by those who are supporting them.
Yep, I think that's true.
All right. So a fun one here as we start to wrap it up. What is your favorite political thriller? Movie, TV show?
Yes, Manchurian Candidate.
Original?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I liked that second one. I mean, that's one where I thought the cover, I mean, that Meryl Streep, the way she played that, when she was like Hillary, I don't know. I thought that the second one was pretty damn good too.
You are now, so I actually haven't seen the second one. I've only seen the first one, but you are
Oh
now the
yeah.
second person in like a
Liv
month to tell me the
Schreiber.
second one's good. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Oh, she clearly is basing her. It's on. She said it's like an impression of Hillary Clinton. She's amazing in that movie.
We got to check that out.
Amazing.
Yeah, a little post primary.
Yeah.
And I think
Movie.
Manchurian Candidate is eternally relevant.
Yeah, I think so too.
What's going on here?
Yeah, absolutely. There are 700 communists in the State Department.
I
haven't
thinking
even seen the original.
I was thinking a bigger problem than that, but that's okay.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, do you so out there on the campaign trail, busy schedules, zigzagging across and everything? Do you have like a playlist or a song or something that like gets you pumped up? Like what kind of music like kind of keeps you going throughout all this?
Aretha, respect, especially the way they treat me.
Yeah.
And also I like this new one by Miley Cyrus, Flowers.
Okay, I haven't heard
Have
that
you
one.
heard
Yeah.
that? Yeah, it's
No,
really good.
I'll check that out.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Well, okay, so we know we have to let you go because you have another appearance, but anything else that you want our listeners, our local audience here to know as they, we're going to get this out later today. So it'll, people will see this before they make their final decision, before they go to the polls. Any final appeal you would like to make?
I hope that everybody who's voting in New Hampshire on Tuesday realizes, and I think they do, how important this is for those who do not wish to see Donald Trump return to the White House, I respectfully submit that I am the best candidate to beat him. I do not think that a status quo politician or a status quo, let's just continue the way we are agenda is going to defeat the president, former president. I think he pulls people psychologically into a very low place. And I want to lift people to a very high place. I want to open up a sense in people's hearts as well as minds that there is a much greater possibility here, that there is infinite possibility. And America was born of that. That's what Thomas Paine said. We have it in our power to begin the world again. So do we. But we've been trained to limit our political imaginations. We've been trained to think that we can't, that we have to just accept so little. And we kind of have to snap out of that. We have power beyond measure once we pierce that illusion. And I believe that a candidate such as myself who can tap into that and remind people that, hey, we're Americans. And we're Americans. We've done great things before. Abolished slavery, established the 19th Amendment, established labor movement, civil rights. It's simply our turn now. And I believe that a presidential candidate and a president who can say, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to restore America's middle class. We're going to have an economic U-turn. We're going to restore economic hope and opportunity to the average American. That is what's going to beat Donald Trump. And even more than that, that's what's going to repair this country. And I hope that people will give that, and my website and all the issues listed on my website at marianne2024.com. I hope people will give that a very serious listen, very serious consideration. And then if it aligns with your heart, please vote for me.
Well, thank you so much. Very well said. You've got me excited. I know.
Yeah, I'm feeling inspired after this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All my best. Wonderful meeting you. Wonderful meeting your children.
Nice to meet you
God
too.
bless you both. I hope to see you again. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you.
Bye.
Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.